When did you forget you were a lion? There was a time, very early, before you learned the rules, when you were not afraid of anything. You reached for everything. You cried without shame. You laughed with your whole body. You did not yet know the words, "I can't." And then, slowly, something changed. Somewhere between that child and the person sitting here now, you became careful. You became small. You learned to shrink yourself to fit the room. What happened to that child? Where did that fearless energy go? Swami Vivekananda had an answer, and it is not a comfortable one. He said you were hypnotized. Not by a magician, not on a stage, but slowly, gently, by the world around you. By parents, by teachers, by every adult who meant well, and by many who did not. Drop by drop, across all the years of your childhood, you were given a single suggestion, repeated so many times that you stopped hearing it as a suggestion and began to experience it as the simple truth. The suggestion was this: you are weak. Today, we will explore this teaching fully, not as philosophy, but as a key to your own freedom. By the end, you will understand what was done to you as a child, and more importantly, you will understand how to undo it. Let's begin with what Vivekananda actually meant. Vivekananda's entire message can be reduced to one sentence. He said it again and again until it became the heartbeat of everything he taught. Each soul is potentially divine. Within you, right now, is infinite strength, infinite knowledge, infinite freedom. Not as a reward to be earned someday, as a fact, as your nature. He said it even more sharply. Strength is life, weakness is death. Strength is the one thing the spiritual path is meant to give you, and weakness is the one disease it is meant to cure. So if this is true, if you are divine and infinite at your very core, then one question becomes unavoidable. Why do you feel so small? Why does a being of infinite strength feel anxious before a phone call? Why does an infinite soul feel unworthy, inadequate, afraid of failing, afraid of being seen? Vivekananda's answer is the hypnosis. He taught that the weakness you feel is not real. It was never real. It is a suggestion you absorbed and then began to repeat to yourself until the repetition built a person and you mistook that person for you. To understand how completely this works, Vivekananda told a story. It is the most important story he ever told. Listen carefully. A lioness, hunting, leapt at a flock of sheep. In the effort of the leap, she was already weak, and she gave birth and died there in the field. Her cub was born among the sheep, raised among the sheep, fed among the sheep. The lion cub grew up believing it was a sheep. It learned to bleat. It learned to eat grass. It learned to be timid, to startle at noises, to run from danger, to stay close to the flock and never wander. It became, in every way it knew how to measure, a sheep, a strange, awkward sheep, but a sheep. One day, another lion came upon the flock, and it was astonished. There, among the trembling sheep, was a full-grown lion, bleating, frightened, running away with the rest. The old lion approached. The sheep lion shivered with fear. So the old lion took it to a still pool of water and said, "Look at your reflection. Look at mine. We are the same." The sheep lion looked. For the first time in its life, it saw its own face, and something ancient stirred. The old lion roared and said, "Now you roar." The sheep lion tried. At first, only a weak, uncertain sound came out, but then something broke open, and the lion roared with its true voice. The bleating was gone forever. Vivekananda said, "You are that lion. You have been bleating. You have been pretending to be a frightened thing. And the spiritual path is nothing more than the old lion leading you to the water, so you can finally see your own face." Now here is the part this story does not say out loud, but which we must say. You learned to bleat as a child. The hypnosis is not abstract. It came through specific words, specific moments, specific people, and it took specific forms. Vivekananda taught that weakness is not one thing. It wears different costumes. Recognizing which costume you are dressed in is the beginning of taking it off. Let us look at the 4 most common spells cast over a child. The first spell is the spell of inadequacy. This is the suggestion, you are not enough. It was rarely said directly. It arrived in comparisons, in a parent's disappointed face, in praise that came only with achievement and vanished with failure, in the feeling that love was a wage you had to keep earning. A child under this spell grows into an adult who can never rest, who achieves and still feels hollow, who hears every compliment as a temporary reprieve. The bleeding sounds like, "I must do more to be worthy." The second spell is the spell of fear. This is the suggestion. The world is dangerous and you are fragile. It was cast by anxious parents who flinched at every risk, by warnings repeated until caution became a personality, by a household where safety was the highest value and boldness was punished. A child under this spell grows into an adult who shrinks from every opportunity, who calls their fear being realistic, who has talents they will never use because using them would mean stepping past the fence. The bleeding sounds like, "It is safer not to try." The third spell is the spell of approval. This is the suggestion. Other people's opinion of you is the truth about you. It was cast by the constant question, "What will people think?" By shame used as a tool of control, by a child being taught that the gaze of others matters more than the voice within. A child under this spell grows into an adult with no center of their own, who cannot make a decision without scanning the room, who feels they exist only when others approve. The bleeding sounds like, "I am whatever they decide I am." The fourth spell is the spell of guilt. This is the heaviest one, and the one Vivekananda fought against most fiercely. It is the suggestion, there is something wrong with you at the root. You are bad. You are a sinner. You are by nature a flawed thing that must be corrected. Vivekananda called this idea a wicked lie. He said it is a sin to call a human being a sinner, that it is a standing slander against human nature. To tell a lion it is a worm and then ask it to behave like a lion is cruelty disguised as instruction. A child under this spell grows into an adult who carries a quiet, permanent self-contempt, who apologizes for existing, who cannot accept love because they have been taught they do not deserve it. The bleeding sounds like, "I am wrong," all the way down. Look honestly at these four. Most of us were under not one spell, but several. And here is the crucial thing Vivekananda wants you to understand. None of it was true. The inadequacy was not true. The fragility was not true. The dependence on approval was not true. The guilt was the biggest lie of all. These were suggestions, absorbed by a child too young to refuse them. They describe your conditioning. They do not describe you. So what do? How does a lion stop bleeding? Vivekananda gave a clear path. He called it dehypnotization, the undoing of the spell. There are 3 movements. The first work is recognition. You cannot break a spell you believe is reality. So the first task is simply to see it, to catch the bleeding as it happens. When the thought comes, "I am not enough, I am not safe, what will they think? Something is wrong with me." You stop and you name it. You say, "That is not me speaking. That is the hypnosis speaking. That is a suggestion installed by someone else long ago." This sounds small. It is not. The moment you can watch the weak thought instead of being the weak thought, the spell has already begun to crack. The second work is refusal. Vivekananda was direct about this. He said the remedy for weakness is not to think about your weakness. It is to think about your strength. Most people try to heal by endlessly analyzing their wounds, circling the same pain, retelling the same story of the child who was hurt. He said this only deepens the hypnosis. Every time you rehearse your weakness, you cast the spell again, on yourself, with your own voice. So you refuse. You stop feeding it, not by pretending the past did not happen, but by refusing to keep it alive in the present. The old suggestion only has power as long as you keep repeating it. Stop repeating it, and it begins to starve. The third work is the new suggestion. Here is the heart of Vivekananda's method, and it is strikingly practical. If you were built by suggestion, you can be rebuilt by suggestion. The mind that absorbed "I am weak" can absorb "I am strong" if you give it the new words with the same patience the world gave you the old ones. He told people plainly to assert their true nature, to say to themselves again and again, "I am the self, I am free, I am strength. Nothing can frighten me because the infinite is what I am." At first, these words will feel false, the way a true voice feels false to a creature that has only ever bleated. Say them anyway. Say them until the new voice grows louder than the old one. This is not lying to yourself. The bleeding was the lie. This is the roar finding its way back. Here is a practice Vivekananda's teaching points toward. Use it to begin the dehypnotization. Do this in a quiet place where you will not be disturbed. Sit comfortably. Close your eyes. Take several slow, deep breaths until the mind settles. Now picture yourself as a young child. See that child clearly. See the openness in the face, the energy, the lack of fear. This child was not weak. This child was a lion before the bleeding was taught. Look at this child and understand. Every weak idea this child later absorbed was a costume placed on them. It was never their skin. Now speak to this child silently. Say, "You were never weak. You were never bad. You were never not enough. What they told you was a spell, and the spell ends now. I see your true face. Feel whatever rises. Grief, tenderness, anger, relief. Let it move through you without resistance. Now let that image dissolve and see still water, a quiet pool. Lean over it and see your own reflection looking back. And in that reflection, behind the adult face, see the lion. It was always there. It never died. It only forgot. Silently say, with whatever strength you can find, this is what I am. Infinite, free, fearless, divine. I am awake now. Take 3 deep breaths. Open your eyes slowly. This practice is not one time. The hypnosis took years to build, and the new suggestion needs repetition. But each time, the old voice grows fainter and the true one grows clearer. Vivekananda left a final teaching, and it is the foundation under everything else. The child you were, and the adult you are, and the old person you will become are all changing pictures. But something in you does not change. The one who watches the child grow. The one who is aware right now, behind every thought and every fear. Vivekananda called this the Atman, the self, and he taught that this self was never touched by any of it. The hypnosis happened to your mind. It never reached the Atman. The lion in the reflection was not made strong by the practice. It was always the lion. The practice only removed the belief that it was a sheep. This is why Vivekananda could say there is nothing to fear, ever, at all. The infinite cannot be damaged. The divine cannot be made small. The worst thing that ever happened to you in childhood happened to the costume, and you are not the costume. You were never the weak one. You were only a lion who was told a story, and now you have heard a different story, the true one. Arise, awake, and stop bleeding. If this teaching reached something in you, subscribe and turn on notifications. More of Vivekananda's wisdom on strength, fearlessness, and the divinity within you is coming. Share this video with someone who has forgotten they are a lion. Sometimes a person hears the words on the exact day they are ready for them. And leave a comment. Which of the 4 spells was cast over you as a child, and which one are you ready to break? Naming it out loud is the first roar. See you in the next one. If you enjoyed this video, you can follow my Patreon for free, and if you want to support my work, you can always upgrade your membership level. On my Patreon, you'll find new videos published 2 days before they're released on YouTube, ad-free and exclusive content that I don't make publicly available. The link is in the description and pinned comment. See you in the next video.